Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. I had a few days off but we are back and we're back talking about transfers. We're joined by Tom again, otherwise known as T-Logic on Twitter, and we're going to sit down and talk about wingers today because, listen, personally for me, obviously the centre midfield is a massive issue with Everton Football Club and we all know that is priority issue, but taken away from that, which is tough to do so, but taken away from that, for me I think the wings are positions that we really need to be looking at strengthening in this summer. You know, you look at our winger statistics over the season. Theo Walcott, appeared in 29 games, 2 goals, 4 assists. Bernard, 30 appearances, 3 goals, 2 assists. Obviously, we know Alex Iwobi struggled as well in his first season, but he was sort of in and out the team and playing in different positions, etc. So we know that we need to strengthen in those positions, and we've been linked with a few wingers over the last couple of weeks or so, and there's other wingers that we haven't been linked with that maybe we should be looking at, because it's quite evident that those players that are currently playing for Everton Football Club are in wide positions just simply aren't doing enough, or just simply aren't good enough. And it's tough for Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison being up there on their own, and look, both have had absolutely fantastic seasons, I think 15 goals each or thereabout, but without them, or if one of them gets an injury, then you're really falling back and looking on your wide players to chip in and really get involved, and simple enough, our wide players aren't doing that. So before we go into some of the names that we've got written down, how are you, Tom? How's life treating you? Obviously it's been a couple of months since we've spoke on the stream. How's things?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Being busy with market insights and obviously normal job and all that. But yeah, it's been good so far. Really hot today.
Brilliant. It is. It's
but sure we'll get through it.
Definitely. I was just saying to Tom off camera there, my computer's having a little bit of a throwing up 625 different things because the weather's a little bit hot, and as I'm sure you'll all know, every time the weather's a little bit hot, the computer does a madness because it can't hack it. But hopefully we'll be all right. So like I said then just before, wingers for me are a key position, a position that we definitely need to strengthen in this summer. And I understand that there's going to be a lot of positions that we need to strengthen in, and whenever you talk about who do Everton need to bring in, or where do we need to improve on, you've got wingers, you've got centre midfielder, you've got centre back, some people still saying centre forward, some people saying goalkeeper. There's a lot of positions that we need to strengthen in, not whether it be this summer or at some point in the very near future if we're going to be a side that are challenging in the Europa League or challenging for Champions League football. Do you agree with me then, Tom? Do you think wingers, sort of, again excluding centre midfield because we know that's a blatant issue, do you think that wingers are sort of the next position down that we should be looking at strengthening in this summer?
Yeah, 100%. I think when you see the productivity that they've done this season, you've got Walcott, Bernard, Iwobi. I mean, I think between them, I think they've only scored like 5 goals this year, 5 or 6 goals, something like that. That's a massive disappointment, really, from when Bernard come in. He got brought in, 120 grand a week. Free transfer, yeah, I don't know that, but he hasn't really hit the height that I think a lot of people would have expected.
No, definitely not.
Walcott, yeah, don't get me wrong, I think Walcott's probably our best right winger to play that position, because I don't think anyone else in the club can play it. You got Iwobi, yeah, he's had his issues. I think a lot of fans aren't really taken to him just yet, but I wouldn't necessarily throw the towel in on Iwobi just yet, but we'll shall see next season comes.
Spot on. And you're right there. You look at our wingers, and productivity is a massive issue, and they're all quite similar for me. You've got Bernard, you've got obviously Theo Walcott, you've got Alex Iwobi, players that on the ball, Bernard, quite skillful, can beat a man, got a lot of pace. But for me, the thing that they're all lacking is that final product, is that getting in the final third and producing, whether it be a cross for an assist, whether it be going alone and getting a goal. We've seen Bernard at the start of the season against Watford cut in from the right-hand side, I believe it was, and put it bottom corner, and that was within the first couple of games of the season. He then, a few weeks later, done similar against West Ham United, scored a goal in that game, and he looked like he'd started really positively, and then he just sort of tailed off. And again, it's that end product, isn't it? It's you're looking at your wingers, and it's all good if they can take 3 men on and they can run dead fast and they can break the down the wing, but if the final ball's not good enough, or if they're putting it out of play, or they're not creating anything at the end of it, then it's not good enough, is it really? And we've put some names down here of players that, again, young players. One thing which is quite noticeable with our wingers, excluding probably Alex Iwobi, is they're all sort of getting towards the back end of the career. I know Bernard's 27 years old, Theo Walcott 31, they're all sort of again, sort of tailing off, coming to that downward trajectory, if you like, Theo Walcott more so than Bernard. But again, Bernard, £150,000 a week, and for me, listen, I'd be lying if I was to say I wasn't disappointed with Bernard's entire career at Everton Football Club so far. Don't get me wrong, I like the lad, and I think when he's at his best, he's a good player, and I think he runs at people and he threatens opposition. But you know, once the opposition's been ran at 3 or 4 times and realised he's not really doing anything with the ball here, or he's not creating anything at the end of it, they'll start to calm down a little bit, and that worry will fade away. And again, it's similar with Theo Walcott. I agree. I don't really go too much into Theo Walcott because he is the only player that can play on that side of the pitch, and he is quite direct. He runs with people, and since the lockdown, obviously, last time we spoke, football hadn't restarted. Since it had restarted in the final 9 games, Theo had actually done okay. He scored the goal against Aston Villa. He looked a threat down that side. The introduction of Anthony Gordon as well on the other side of the pitch, he was looking a little bit more of a threat than any of the others. But it's clear that we need to strengthen, isn't it? Certainly, you know, in the next couple of years or so. For me, I'll be looking at in the summer we get a couple of midfielders in, and then the next position is a winger. So we've written 3 names down that we spoke about previously, but I want to talk about one that we haven't got written down that you mentioned just before we went live, and that is David Brooks of Bournemouth, a player that we have been linked with, not direct or any bids or anything suggested, just purely that Everton are interested in the player. Good, obviously young player, got a lot of talent, got a lot of potential for the future, played in the Premier League. Do you like the look of David Brooks then? Would he be somebody that you'd be looking at bringing in for the future?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to go and copy what Ancelotti wants to do on the left-hand side with someone cutting inside and sort of playing that 10 role at times, and then having someone on the left-hand side being that type of winger, I mean, yeah, I think it'd be a very good signing for Everton. I think obviously the last season or so, he hasn't, because of injury worries and all that, he hasn't really been on the radar of most top teams. Yeah. So I think Everton would get it. I think Everton would get him.
That's that.
I think he's more. Yeah, I think he's more like a realistic look. I mean, smart. He's clever around the box. His smart passes. He's high on that. His through balls are very good. I think as well. I think dribbling wise, I think that's what we need, and we need direct runners more than anything at Everton.
Yeah, definitely.
I think you see that with Iwobi at times, but I don't think Iwobi's best position is on the right hand side. I mean, Ancelotti's tried that with Iwobi, and he just isn't capable of doing it. So I think if you moved Iwobi, maybe at times you could put Iwobi behind either Calvert-Lewin or Richarlison up front. You know, that's where I think Iwobi was brought in for, to be more of like a Ross Barkley replacement. Because when Barkley went, we had no one at that club to sort of carry the ball through teams and that. So yeah, I think he would be he'd be a nice start to start the transfer window.
Yeah, no, I agree completely, and you're right. We don't have those players that are direct. We don't have those players that, you know, running, and that sort of tails into the conversation about centre midfielder as well. As we haven't got a centre midfielder that'll pick the ball up and run at the opposition, that'll pick the ball up and really break forward in strides and push the team forward. It's all sideways, it's all backwards, it's all, you know, trying to give the responsibility to somebody else. We've seen it so many times last season with Gylfi Sigurdsson, where he's pointing or he doesn't want the ball, and we need somebody that's a little bit like Ross Barkley had when he first broke into the team, that confidence, that belief in his own ability, where I want the ball here and I'm going to push it forward and I'm going to break. And you know, it's the same on the wing. We need players that are going to be able to do that, and that are going to be able to do it with a final product as well. David Brooks, I agree completely. I think he's a very good player. Obviously, it's been tough in a side that have done, you know, poor this season and have had a poor season, and that's the case. And you mentioned something before talking about David Brooks, which I think is a really good point, and that is Everton sort of looking at players that maybe have gone under the radar of the top teams. It's all well and good sitting here, and when Carlo Ancelotti come in, I think we all fell into this sort of mind hole, or whatever you want to call it, of being linked with your James Rodriguez, your Gareth Bale at one point, your Zlatan Ibrahimovic. We were linked with all of these players that not only are on massive wages but have got massive pedigrees and played at massive clubs. And again, we've seen a similar thing with Pierre-Emile Højbjerg. It was put out in the news that we'd bid for Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, that Everton were interested in him. Tottenham come in, and it was quite clear that player's head was always at Spurs. He always wanted to move to Spurs. And one thing that frustrates me a lot with Everton Football Club, not just when looking at wingers but looking at any position in transfer windows, is sort of sitting back on players. When we spoke about centre midfielders a couple of months ago, we spoke about Ibrahim Sangare, Boubakary Samare, players that will be really, really good additions to Everton's team that top clubs aren't really looking at too much at the moment, or at least they're not letting on that they're looking at. And one issue I have massively with Everton, and I've done for years and years, is Everton waiting for those big clubs to be interested in those players and then try and match that, because we're never going to match it. If Manchester United are in for a player that's from France who's playing in the French league, he's not going to look at Man United and Everton and go, right, I'd go to Everton. Okay, Carlo Ancelotti is a big factor, but historically they're not going to go to Everton. If Manchester City are in the same situation, they're going to look at the side that are playing in Europe. They're going to look at the side with, the most recent history in terms of cup competitions won. And that's the issue I have with Everton, is sitting back and waiting for other teams to get involved and then going, right, we'll get involved. Why can't we ever just go out and go, no, you know what, we're going to stick a £35 million bid in for Sarr, or we're going to stick a £30 million bid in for Leon Bailey, and then he's going to come to us and sign on the dotted line before any other team's going to have the chance to look and go, oh, bloody hell, we should have gone in for them. And it's a similar situation with David Brooks, isn't it? Because I'm under the impression, or I believe that there'll be a lot of top clubs looking at David Brooks come the end of the transfer window, certainly in the future.
Yeah, I think we're just on the Everton thing of why they don't go for, like, they don't bring them in dead quick and at the start of transfer window. I think obviously they're working hard behind the scenes to try and get the best available possible. But when you look at Everton, and the reality is that we're a mid-table Premier League team. That's just the fact. And we have been, we threw a lot of money at it and we failed. We had that season with Steve Walsh where he brought in 5 players in the less than like 2 or 3 weeks, and anyone couldn't believe it. We were shocked, weren't we, when Klassen got rolled out, Michael Keane got rolled out. We were all made up with it, but that didn't really work out for us. But I think the transfer strategy I think Everton needs to start looking for now is not so much I wouldn't say rejects of top teams. I'd say more so like the squad players and that of them teams. Yeah, they are good, but I think when we've got to start now looking for like Jonathan David just went to Lyon. Lille. He's a player that has got a very high ceiling, and the way Luis Campos, the director of football, has seen it, they've sold a player for 70 million, and they've brought in younger players, so they know that they're going to get them out very quickly, and then they're going to sell them for double. I think Everton, to try and bridge the gap, I think, you do need a blend of 25 to 27-year-olds who can produce that 6 to 7 out of 10 every week. But you've got to have the sort of Lukaku's, the Ross Barkleys, the Gerard Deulofeu's. You've got to have them mixed in to blend in. I mean, Marcel Brands was getting heat over the last few months of sort of question what he's done. I think he's done a very good job. I think people have got to realise what a hard job he has on his hands. I mean, it's all well saying that you've got to get rid of these players, but you've got to find buyers. You know what I mean? It's all right saying, he needs to go, like we'd all say Theo Walcott needs to go, but who's going to buy Theo Walcott and take his wage?
That's it.
Then
That's it, I mean? Spot on. And I bring this point up every time, and I just remember, and I don't even know whether it was a joke tweet to this day, but I just remember it when it was a couple of weeks ago when we were linked with Sarr again, and somebody said, well, why not just give Palace Tosun, Bernard, Walcott, Sigurdsson and Delph, and we'll have Sarr, and we'll give them 20 mil as well. And I was thinking, well, Palace would have to want those players, and why would Palace want Fabian Delph and Theo Walcott and Gylfi Sigurdsson and give us their best player or their most effective player for players that they're watching every week thinking these don't do enough.
Well, I think on that, I think just on that, you've got to realise Wilfred Zaha's wages compared to three players is going to be a lot less. Like Walcott won't be on 20 grand a week.
Yeah, exactly.
Tosun won't be on that.
Yeah, and
certainly Delph won't be on that. So you're talking about nearly 200, maybe 250 plus grand a week just on 3 players' wages. No one in the right mind, director of football or manager, would ever take that transfer. They just wouldn't do it. And plus as well, just on Zaha, I think now you're looking at it, he's the same. I think similar to what Højbjerg's done in his agents. I think Højbjerg's agent put it out there that they see Everton as like a buying club, so they can buy. They've got the money to buy, so they sort of turn Tottenham's hand a little bit.
Yeah.
And then you're looking at Zaha now. He's recently starting to say it's coming out. Everton are back in for him and all that, but his eyes are on Arsenal.
Yeah.
So I think Everton need to start a little bit more, as I say, becoming not. I wouldn't say joke of a team. It's just they're starting to edge towards that West Ham sort of style where they're just buying players and they're not working. Yeah. So hopefully we can get out of it.
Spot on. I agree. We'll get into the players that we've jotted down and that we've put some things down about that could improve Everton. Before we get into that, Reese has donated £9.99 to the stream and says hit the like button, everyone. Thank you very much, Reese. Really do appreciate that. We will be getting in the live comments a little bit later on in the live stream. Let us know what you think about everything that obviously we're talking about. Do you agree? Do you think that winger is a position that we need to improve massively? And like I said, there's a matter of urgency, taking away the centre midfield, which we all know is first sort of port of call is the wide positions a necessity for you. So first player we'll dive into then is Ismaila Sarr, currently at Watford, 22 years old. I believe he joined last summer, £27 million, currently contracted until June 2024. Senegalese right winger, of course, appeared in 28 games, 5 goals and 6 assists in the Premier League for Watford, and then 2 appearances and 1 goal in the EFL Cup or Carabao Cup, whatever it's called these days. Got some really interesting percentage stats about Ismaila Sarr. 30% goal participation out of 58% of his appearances in the starting 11. Really good player. Obviously, we've all watched him in the Premier League this season. There's been certain games where he's really dragged Watford through. Again, another player that we're looking at that will be coming in from a relegated side. We've seen them work before. We've seen it with Idrissa Gay. Obviously, Richarlison wasn't playing. Watford weren't relegated when Richarlison was playing for them, but they were in a struggling position. We brought him in. What are your feelings on Sarr then? Obviously he's had a decent first season in the Premier League. It hasn't been unbelievable. Obviously 5 goals, 6 assists, but 22 years old. He's definitely a player for the future, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he's a very good player. I think, as like we said, we talk about these high ceiling young players. I think he's certainly worth what I think Watford are asking for 30-40 million. Yeah. Something like that. I think, very good. I think he hits bylines. That's what Ancelotti's after for us out of his right winger. I think his progressive running is very good. I think he's hitting 2.87 per 90. That's in the 0.75% percentile of the league. Dribbling wise, he's very good. He's doing 6.34 per 90, and has got 54% success rate. I think at the start, I think he was finding his feet. As I say, you're looking at Watford now, and they were in turmoil a little bit, weren't they? So you don't really know what was going on behind the scenes and all that. But I think the turn of I think I watched him. I've watched him a good few times this season. I think obviously when he played against Everton, but I think his standout performance that really put eyes on him for top teams is his game against Liverpool. I thought that really showed his attributes of what Everton needs. They just need that attacking player who can get behind the defensive line. And push well, crosses, final third, he's very good. So I think he'd be first choice.
Spot on.
For what I think.
Yeah, spot on. It was that game against Liverpool again, coming up against, listen, we hate them and we don't like to compliment them, but a top opposition. At the end of the day, a side that have just absolutely pissed the league, rolled it. Other than the 9 games where they may have dropped points or been battered by Manchester City, prior to the football suspension, they absolutely walked the league, and he turned up in that game and he looked like a real talent. And again, without talking too much about them, obviously he's Senegalese, same as Sadio Mane, and a player that Sadio Mane massively raves about himself. Obviously he's been with him in the Senegalese setup. He knows a lot about him, and he speaks very highly of him. And again, that's coming from one of the better wingers in the league, one of the better wingers in world football probably at the moment. He's a very good young talent. I believe he can also play along the the left wing, fit into the centre forward position as well. So he's quite versatile. Definitely a player that we could do with. And at 22 years old, like you said, the sky's his limit, really, isn't it? And again, for me, be a player coming in with the right attitude, with an attitude of I'm going to get my head down and I'm going to work and I'm going to prove that I'm good enough to be playing for a Carlo Ancelotti. And we've seen that in spells last season, granted it was his first season, but considering it was his first season in the Premier League, we look at Moise Kean, for example, who was also his first season in the Premier League, 2 goals. I think he appeared in near enough 30 appearances. Obviously, a lot of them were off the bench. But again, you know, when you compare him to a player in Moise Kean, who we know has got a lot of ability and we know has got a lot of talent, you also have to adopt the same settling in period season for Sarr, don't you, at Watford, and considering that he's had a top season, and I agree, I think he'd be a fantastic addition. Talking prices then, you mentioned there, Watford are probably going to want quite a fair bit for him, and probably a little bit more because it's Everton. Obviously they've gone down, they'll be wanting to get some funds. Realistically, how much do you think we could bring Sarr into the football club for, and do you think that deal would be a simple one to complete if we put the money on the table?
I mean, I think you've got to factor in the relegation. See, in contracts now, you don't know whether they've got relegation clauses in them, so it could be a certain price there. I mean, you're going off papers, but just off what they're saying, I mean, I'd take it as a pinch of salt, really, but you probably are talking about 30, 40 million for him. I mean, don't forget, I mean, when for Richarlison first come in, I mean, not a lot we're talking about his season at Watford. I think that was very surprising when Everton signed him. I think that shocked a lot of people. Yeah. I mean, including Paul Mason. But
Exactly.
I think Sarr, yeah, you're talking about 40 million, and then that's a very good price for a player who's 22 and who's already had that season in the Premier League. So you're sort of getting a second season syndrome there. Yeah. Of right, well then he might progress even better. He knows who he's playing against. Yeah. He knows the tempo of the league. He knows what he's coming up against every week. So I think when you look at it, I think if you had Sarr, Gordon, Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Richarlison and a 4, I mean, you'd like that as an Everton fan. Yeah. You know what I mean?
You're happy. And like you mentioned there, he's had that season in the Premier League now. He knows what it's about. And we've seen so many players over the years, you know. You only have to look at the top players in the Premier League at the moment. Kevin De Bruyne played for Chelsea. He had that season where he was in and out. He was playing in the Premier League. He knew what it was about. Yes, granted, he went away for a couple of seasons, come back. Probably the best player in the Premier League ability-wise. You're definitely one of them. Paul Pogba very similarly had that season where he was in and out with Manchester United as a youth player. Went away for a bit, come back again. Another good midfielder in the Premier League. A lot of say the top end of midfielders. Romelu Lukaku, big one for us. Obviously had that season where he was playing, with West Brom. Sort of found his way, his feet a little bit. Come to Everton on loan, had a great season, and then ultimately, obviously he's since left the Premier League. But I think he's just had his best scoring season as a player with Inter Milan. Yeah. So there's been a lot of players that. My point is, there's been a lot of players that have had that first sort of season, and whether they've then pushed on straight away in the second season or whether they've then gone away and come back, they've known what it's like to play in the Premier League. They've known how tough it is. They've known what they need to do. They've known what they need to bring. And hopefully that'll work with Moise Kean as well, just briefly like we mentioned before. Hopefully he'll now step it up a little bit and know he needs to be of a physical level because obviously of the first season. But I agree. I think, again, the thing that Sarr has on any of the other players that we've spoken about other than David Brooks is that Premier League experience, doesn't he, and that knowledge of doing it, and also doing it against the top side in the Premier League and doing it quite confidently. Yeah,
I mean, you mentioned before. I mean, it could be meaningless, but it could also factor in a little bit where you have seen reports about Sarr getting reported to Liverpool and Mane being a factor. Yeah. But would Sarr at 22 want to go and sit on the bench behind them 3 because he's not gonna start as many games? It could benefit Everton that Mane is at Liverpool and he could see Everton as play. Well, this is my next step to go back into the Premier League.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So I think that could go into Everton's favour, especially being in the area of where Mane is and that. So yeah, I'd take that into account as well.
Yeah, definitely. Spot on. I agree. So overall, just to sort of summarise it a little bit. Definitely one. Would he be the top of your list then? Would he be number one target out of any of the players we're going to talk about and any other winger?
Listen, I wanted Ferran Torres, but obviously City have jumped in ahead of the queue. But I mean, Sarr, I think he just ticks every box of what Everton wants and what Everton need. Yeah. And also you factor in, like we were talking about, high ceiling players like Everton have to reach top four or even Europa League football. They've got to have these players where you're going to have top teams coming in and spending 80 to 100 million, and he is potentially one of them players.
Yeah, spot on, I agree. Well, you mentioned Fernan Torres, then we'll go into talking about Fernan Torres before we get into the next player, which is Leon Bailey. I've seen a couple of people in the live comments already throw his name about. Fernan Torres, then obviously we know he just went to Manchester City. Very, very good player. Again, a player that I dare say would have been on a lot of teams' radars, but Manchester City were the first team to get there. Obviously, they've just David Silva's just left them, or will be leaving them at the end of the season, however that works. Sarr as well left them for Bayern Munich at the end of his contract. Very, very good player, isn't he? And a player that we would have loved at Everton, but obviously his quality is shown by the fact that he's got that move to Manchester City.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at Fernan Torres for Everton. I was discussing this with the two people I work with, Andy El Pavotti and Tim at Stop Bunching, and we were looking at like wingers and things like that, and Torres is one player that would just tick every single box that Everton wants.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at Deulofeu, who's far better than Deulofeu. Yeah. I mean, he progressively runs as dribbling's brilliant at times. He's got he's got an end product.
Yeah.
And plus as well, defensively, he's very good defensively. I think Everton need to look at as well the defensive capabilities. I mean, Bernard and Walcott are very fragile in the sense of they don't really help out Dean or Coleman. You see Coleman at times very deep. You don't see him many times taking that progressive run through into the final thirds. I mean, don't you know, probably age-wise as well, but I think it's more so to do with Walcott. I mean, you look at them and you think they are very, very weak-minded defensively, and then, but yeah, I mean, for what he was going for, I mean, you could think Torres was going for 60 odd million, I think, but when they come out with that, he was 20 million. I was shocked. I was quite surprised at that, really.
Yeah. Again, well within the range, and you're shocked earning 20 million in this day and age because it's very little, but then when you compare it to some of the money that we've spent in recent years on some of the players that we've bought in for a lot more money, it really is shocking, and he is a fantastic player, and again a player that...
Yeah. Go on, go on, mate.
Sorry, I was just going to say, again, a player that, Manchester City got in there first. He jumped on, £20 million. He obviously went, right, okay, that's the deal on the table. I'll look at that one. I'll go, good team. Obviously, fantastic team. I'll move to them, and again, it's about that, isn't it? Fantastic young player and a player
I think when you got to look at it though, and then when these clubs get billionaire owners, they've got to put the right money into players. I mean, when you look at City, they progressed a little bit with Alano and Benjani and things like that, but then they hit that level where they got the David Silva, they got the Vincent Kompany and the Agueros. You've got to look at sort of them and Chelsea have sort of put the blueprint out there. I mean, you look at who Chelsea brought in. They brought in Ian Robben.
Yeah.
You're looking at David Silva. Everton have got to make that statement at some point. Yeah.
Definitely.
Whereas, they brought in Sigurdsson, and that just has not worked whatsoever. No,
I agree. Spot on. And I think when Farhad Moshiri come in, we were all sort of waiting for that. Where's the David Silva sign? I think people named it as Robinho-esque, but Robinho actually wasn't as successful as a Silva or a Aguero or a Kompany has been for Manchester United. For Manchester
just made a statement.
Just
made a statement. Yeah.
A statement sign, and I agree. Spot on, and Fernan Torres would have been that statement signing, but obviously we'll see how he does at Manchester City. I dare say he will do fantastically. If you're enjoying the scene, by the way, so far, please do hit the like button. It does only take a second. We'll dive into the live comments after we talk about the next player, then before we talk about the final player. Next player I've got on the list is Leon Bailey, 23 years old, currently playing for Bayer Leverkusen, Jamaican left winger. Again, another player that could play on the right hand side, also play left midfield, but priority wise left winger. Contracted currently until 2023. Bundesliga, I believe he had 22 appearances, but not many of them were starts. 5 goals, 3 assists, 2 red cards as well, which I didn't see either of them, but I just thought I'd jot that down down because
Yeah.
it was just an interesting stat. He's got a 13% goal participation rate, signed for £12.5 million, also scored a goal in the Europa League. Compared obviously to Sarr's 30% goal participation, it's not even half of that, but again he has featured in a lot less games, certainly started a lot less games than Sarr. 3 assists, 5 goals. Again, he's a player that a lot of people know about because of his season before, the 2018-19 season. I think you mentioned he scored 10 goals, very, very good season, sort of that statement, here I am, I'm on the scene. Not had as much of a successful season, this one just gone. You mentioned before we went live that you're not completely convinced that he's a wide player, he's a winger. What do you think of him just as a player in general then? I think I like him. I think he's good. Obviously, again, at that age, 23 years old. Again, very high ceiling, a lot of potential, a bright future ahead of him. But is he what we need in that position, I suppose, is the real question.
Short answer, no. Not in my opinion. I mean, you look at it, he's more suited to a counter-attacking system. I mean, he'd be great. I mean, if you look at it, who we've got, and then you sort of compare plays. Yeah, he would improve us.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of consistency with him, I think he's very inconsistent in his play. I mean, you've mentioned there he's had 22 games, but 12 of them he was on the bench.
Yeah.
And then the year before he never really shined really in the league.
Yeah.
I mean, he scored 5 goals in the league previous. So it's sort of not a red flag, but it's sort of you've sort of got to look at it thinking, right, well, is he digressing? Is he sort of going further down? I mean, dribbling wise, I think I wouldn't have him. He's nowhere near what you'd say a Gordon's feet are like. I mean, he makes, I think he does like 6.37 dribbles per 90, and he's only got like 40% success rate. I mean, that to me doesn't really show a person who can dribble.
Yeah.
But his progressive running and his sort of football IQ round the penalty area is brilliant. I mean, his smart passes is very high. His through balls are very high. His successful passes to penalty areas is high. Yeah. It's 2.28 per 90. I mean, for a lad who's coming off the bench to put like higher numbers like that, yeah, that's exactly what he is. I mean, you could play him on the right where he could be. I mean, he'd be a left-footed right winger, but he's not one of them who can sort of come inside. He's more like an inverted winger where he will hit the byline, he will go, but all his attributes for me would be to play him up front. Yeah. I mean, he'd be frightening really to play against Premier League centre halves. I mean, especially in behind. I mean, if you could get Andre Gomez firing with his balls and that, yeah, you could. I mean, Lucas Dean as well. I mean, yeah, you could find him, but for the prices, did you say his price? I haven't really checked up on what his price was.
He signed for 12.15 million. The transfer market website values him at around 26.5 million.
Yeah, so for Prem, you probably double. Yeah. Probably double. Well, we've just talked about Sarr, and then you got Bailey similar. I mean, you look at Sarr, he's had a good solid year in the Prem. So you know what you're getting. Everton like things like that, by the way. They like sort of them top 5 leagues, but also you look at the Richarlison thing. I mean, if you had a choice between Sarr and Bailey, I'd go for Sarr.
Fair enough.
But maybe, yeah. I mean, his consistency has to improve. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, he's a very good player. He's a very good player, very good talent. But the last 2 seasons, he hasn't really sort of become what people expected them to become.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think consistency is a massive way, because one thing that Everton should be looking to bring in this summer, whether it be at centre midfield, whether it be on the wing, whether it be at centre back, is that consistency. You know, people were talking about Kurt Zouma just briefly off topic for a few days ago, because we were linked with them, and one thing I sort of put towards being against that is that Kurt Zouma for me would go in there and rival Michael Keane and Yerry Mina. Now, what's the point in going out and spending £20+ million on a player that's only going to be able to rival the players that we've currently got? If we're bringing in a centre-back or we're bringing in a winger, they need to be head and shoulders better than any player that we've got in that position that fit into there. And, you know, Leon Bailey, again, I agree, he does need to be a bit more consistent, and he needs to improve. And ultimately, Everton don't need inconsistent players, do we? We've got far too many of them.
No.
Talking about, you know, and being a centre forward then and being frightening going forward and running a Premier League centre back. Somebody mentioned it in the live comments earlier. I'll try and find the comment in a second. It wasn't too much about Leon Bailey, but it was rather about bringing in another centre forward and maybe putting Richarlison back over to the wing, whether it be left or right. Would this be something that you would consider, or you think Everton would consider, or would work? And if so, would Leon Bailey be the type of player that we could bring in to play at that forward role, or would Moise Keane be somebody?
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on if they can get the first, second, third choice winger. I mean, they need that. I mean, I think Ancelotti, I mean, you look at the manager, I don't think he rates, well, he does rate Richarlison as a winger, but I don't think he's going to be his first choice right winger. I mean, otherwise he'd have played him there.
Definitely.
You'd have already seen that. I mean, yeah, he did come in. I mean, he was very good for Marco Silva on the left-hand side. He has played on the right, Richarlison, and he will get you goals no matter where he is. I mean, he always will get you a goal. It's just even so, the player himself, does he want to play there?
Yeah, that's true.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Factors,
so exactly, when you see him now, he sort of carries himself as a striker. I mean, as when he first started there, I thought he was very suspect when he played on his own up front. I mean, people forget that. I mean, he couldn't hold the line. I mean, obviously, physically wise, he has grown a bit in stature and things like that. And obviously, you've got Calvert-Lewin there. I mean, we're talking here now, like, I mean, the way I look at it, you've got to recruit for the way Ancelotti is going to set up. I mean, 4-4-2, we're all surmising that, but he could go 4-3-3, he could go 4-2-3-1. You just don't know what he's going to bring out, because a very good quote that people missed from Ancelotti is that he got asked what sort of system he will be playing. He said he wants a variety of systems. So I think this summer you are going to see some surprising plays where you think, oh, I didn't think we needed that, like a number 10 or maybe like a left back, a right back. You just don't know how he's going to sort of come this season. But yeah, I mean, if you going back to it, I think if he is going to start playing Richarlison on the wing, I mean, you're going to have to get a striker in, aren't you? I mean, you got Moise Keane, I mean, it's been a bit of a crazy season for him, and for the lads. I mean, I thought it was the end when Duncan Ferguson took him. Yeah. I thought it was over then. But no, like I say, I mean, Graham Souness, I like to bring up old stuff, but Graham Souness brought a thing up which was a bit on the nose, where he said his attitude could be an issue, but I think he's proved his attitude from that point there. I mean, a lot of professional footballers would never put a shirt on again after that. I mean, that's the taboo in it of bringing off play. I mean, I've never seen that in my life. I've never seen that in my life where you've brought him on and then 10-15 minutes later you come bringing him off. So I mean, that just shows his character and his determination, in my opinion, and his strat. And as well, I think against Ball, I think he was out to prove a point.
Yeah.
You could see that the way he was playing. I mean, he has come on sometimes and he has been erratic, but you're looking at a 19-year-old player trying to impress the manager.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I think next season you're going to see a lot more of what Moise Keane will bring.
Yeah, spot on. I agree 100%. And you mentioned the brilliant point there. A lot of players, certainly in the modern day, with obviously all the money that's involved in football and the wages and the celebrity status, a lot of players would have just said, no, you know what, I'm not putting the shirt on again. But Moise Keane took that as right, I need to improve, I need to get my act together. Obviously, he's had his off-the-field issues as well during this season, the the party in the lockdown and the filming the fans and stuff in the car. It has been an up and down season for him, but you're right, he ended it on a massive positive, and that was not only his goal against Bournemouth, but that performance, which again was quite similar to the performance against Newcastle a few months back at home, where he looked like he was trying to prove a point. He wasn't running around trying to take on every man 25 times to show Carlo Ancelotti what he could do. He was doing the basics, he was getting the ball, he was giving it, he was using his strength, put some fantastic flicks through. He was, absolutely pacing round through people. Obviously he got his goal from being in the right position. But, I agree 100%. Ancelotti come out and said he wants to be able to play different formations. And I think that's the sign of a top manager. And that's, again, sorry to go off topic slightly, but that's maybe where Marco Silva went wrong previously, is he really wanted that 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-2-1, whatever it was, formation to work, and he wouldn't budge it. And when teams sussed it out, and we've seen against Sheffield United that at times that can work, that can benefit our players, it benefits Gomez, it probably benefits Sigurdsson more than any other formation does, but teams can suss it out, and again we've seen that in the game after the Southampton game, after the Sheffield United game. I can't remember who we played. Who did we play after Sheffield United?
Who did we play? I think I've forgotten. About 28 games last season.
It might have been the Bournemouth game. I think it was the Bournemouth game.
Yeah, it was, because we beat Sheffield United and then we played Bournemouth at home.
And lost, yeah. And again, he went with that same formation, and it showed that it's quite easy to figure out and it's quite easy to combat against. And Ancelotti's spot on for me in saying, we need to be able to bring in players that are versatile and that can play in different formations.
I think when you brought up a good point with Silva, where he was short, he just would not let go. Sigurdsson as number 10, everyone could see it. Yeah. Everyone could see it. But just on the recruitment side of that, I think a lot of fans have got to take in consideration with Marcel Brands. He recruited for a 4-3-3.
Yeah.
You could see that from who he brought in and what players were going to fit where. And if the manager does not play that, then that is not down to the director of football. Yeah. He's there to bring in recruits who the manager said, right, we're going to play this system, so I need players to fit this system. Yeah, if the manager doesn't do that, then I don't know what Marcel Brands else could do.
Yeah.
I mean, his recruitment for 4-3-3 was very good, I thought.
Yeah, spot on. I agree. I agree.
Well, now you've got a situation where you've got a manager who come in and just play 4-4-2. Yeah, but don't forget that's the intelligence of the man. He's seen what Duncan Ferguson, in my opinion, done with it, and sort of just rolled with it. That he never come in and starts going, right, I'm going to do 4-3-3 and got them on the team and started playing this brilliant football. No, we just stuck to the basis and it worked. Yeah. But I think, listen, if you're playing 4-4-2, you've got to, like we said before and like we've said in the previous video, you've got to have mobility in centre mid. Yeah. And if we're not going to get that this year, I think you'll see a change in system.
Yeah, spot on. I agree 100%. And I always, whenever there's any questions, believe it or not, there is fans questioning Carlo Ancelotti. I think it shows how intelligent he is, that he just rolled with it and that he he assessed the situation and he went, right, they're playing well in that formation, they're doing the basics, they're understanding, and that's a large part of what we've seen since Carlo Ancelotti's taken over the football club, is players getting back to basics, is defenders getting back to defending, basically, and Michael Keane's benefited from that. He had a really, really good period towards the back end of the season. Last 9 games, he was very, very solid because he was just told, just do the basics, don't need to do anything silly. And obviously, in some games it worked, some games it didn't work. But I think a lot of that is down to the quality of the players and the fact that a lot of these players can't play in versatile formations. They can't change. And again, that's not Marcel Brands' fault. It just means we need to go out and look for better players.
What you got to see as well, we've got a mixture of players from each manager.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a recipe of disaster. Yeah. I mean, now we're looking at Ancelotti, and how long is that? Do you know how long Ancelotti's contract is? Is it 3 years?
I think it's 4. I think it's 4 or 5. Yeah, something like
4, right? Yeah. Well, then you've got to, obviously they're going to give Ancelotti reign, and obviously it's going to be Marcel Brands who's going to be the one dictating sort of. Ancelotti's going to give the sort of blueprint out to what type of players he wants and all that, and then Brands is obviously going to come with 5 or 6 options for him. But then I think what Evan have got to sort of not go into is this where Ancelotti leaves in 4 years, and then we bring in a completely different manager, as in system-wise and all that. I think that's one big issue I've got with Everton. I think every manager they've brought in has always been a different system. Yeah. I don't think Everton now have got an identity.
No.
You wouldn't know how Everton play.
Yeah, I agree.
If a stranger asked you how Everton play, you'd sort, well, yeah, we play 4-2, but we've got players who can play 4-3, and you look at Liverpool, they've got an identity.
Yeah.
Man City have got an identity. I mean, Lampard stamped his identity on Chelsea now.
Yeah.
You've got to sort of have that main, like, it's all well and good having these systems where I can change and switch and all that, but you've got to have that main focal point of a system where the lads know what they're gonna do.
Yeah, spot on.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Spot on, 100%. And that again has an effect on the players. That, like you mentioned, various different players, various different managers, various different systems. Again, if anything, the players are thinking, I don't know how to play the system, or I'm a bit confused. They're probably also thinking, I can't fucking win here. I've been asked to do multiple different things over multiple different years. I basically can't win, and that's understandable as well. Moving on to the final player that we've got written down then, and then we'll dive into some live comments and just talk about the current wingers as well. I'm not too sure how you pronounce this. Is it Crepin or Creepin? Crippen Diatta, 21 years old, Senegalese again, playing for Club Bruges, right winger. Again, transfer market says he can play either side. 22 appearances, 6 goals, 3 assists, 15% goal participation. Currently contract till June 2024. Also scored in the Champions League this season as well, or last season. 5 appearances there. I don't know an awful lot about him, mate. I don't know an awful lot about how he plays. But again, 21 years old, looks like a player who's, again, ceiling very, very high. A lot of potential, somebody that'll be coming in, obviously, for the future. Decent goal return for a young lad as well. Obviously that Champions League experience, 66% in the starting 11 as well of his appearances. So again, over half for the lad of 21 years of age. Is he somebody that we should be looking at? And again, he's probably going to cost, considerably less than Leon Bailey or Sarr would because of that. Again, not many people know an awful lot about him, or certainly not in the general.
Yeah, the general one, but I think a lot of scouts will be have his name down. I mean, he's just an out and out winger. He gets on his crosses. I mean, his last year, I'd say he's more improved. His final ball wise, he looks a lot less. He looks more intelligent.
Yeah,
going for his final ball in the last season that I've watched him. I think you're going to be looking at maybe 20-30 million for the type of player he is.
Okay.
I mean, obviously you've got to factor in the fact that he is coming from Belgium, so there is that sort of, not doubt, but like sort of bedding in period where that he might not go, but listen, his dribbling's brilliant. He's got 60% dribbling success rate. He's got 3.64 touches in the box. I mean, that's very key for me as well for Everton. I don't think we've got a lot of players who want to score.
Yeah.
I mean, since the likes of Lukaku dragging us around, I mean, even in that team, you never really had a lot of goal scorers in that team.
No.
We haven't got. We need them. We're not a team where we can rely on the likes of Calvert-Lewin or to be that Lukaku where he's going to be scoring 20-30 goals a season. I mean, maybe at to a certain point they both could. Him and Richarlison could contribute like that, but we need goal scorers throughout the team.
Yeah,
I mean, he's round the box, there's round his area. I mean, his successful passes to penalty area is 2.38. I mean, that's very high. I mean, he's always involved in his team's build up to goal. So, plus as well, he has been deployed at a right back. So even so, then you could sort of factor in, well, he's versatile in that sense, where you could, maybe you could get 2 wingers in, and then you could sort of see Diatta being, well, he can play right back now or right wing back as he's played before. But yeah, I think if Sarr's not going to be the one, I think he's certainly one that me and the market insights that we put up out there for the Athletic post that we put up with Paddy Boylan's.
Yeah.
He was one that we
Okay.
defo targeted, especially data-wise, and you'd look at him thingy,
Yeah, definitely.
very good player.
Definitely. Well, and again, you know, these are the type of players that Everton should be looking at, not necessarily the players that are in the news, not necessarily the players that everybody knows about, that have got the experience, that are going to cost us an extra 10 or 15 million pound because people know about them. The players that, you know, the right people, scouts, people like Tom, people that know this stuff, know about. These are the players that Marcel Brands should be sort of looking and going, well, you know what, we could bring him in, and a lot of fans might go, don't know an awful lot about him, but that doesn't matter, because if he's going to come in and if he's going to have an impact and he's going to show his quality and he's going to improve the team, then that's all that matters, isn't it? And again, the stats look you know, decent, and he's 21 years of old.
Oh no, his stats is, I mean, yeah, you factor in the fact that he is playing in Belgium, but his stats are very high.
Yeah.
Very high for a player who's playing on the wing. I mean, like you've just mentioned there, Everton have got to sort of take these chances with players before they get taken by
other clubs.
Like, you're like, well, look at Southampton, how they do it. They take them risks.
Yeah.
I mean, they took a risk on Sadio Mane. I think Sadio Mane only scored 10 goals in his first season for it's not Salzburg. Salzburg.
Yeah.
So, but you've got to see like what they bring, like what they're putting up on data wise. I know like there's been a big thing on Twitter and all, like I test the data, but if the data's high and then you watch them and the eye test works, I mean, you've got to go off your own sort of feeling, but data does put you on the right path to what you need, and especially what Everton needs as well.
Yeah, definitely.
He just ticks every box whatever it needs, and plus, well, if you're talking 20-30 million for a player who, yet again, you could be seeing who could be going for 70-odd, 60-odd million in the next 2 or 3 years. I mean, that's the type of club Everton need to not sort of a selling club, but they need to sort of take out the model of like Dortmund, where they sell a player, or like even Lille have become sort of that Dortmund, but you watch them and yet they are in sort of obviously less competitive leagues, as I say, to what you're dealing with in Premier League terms. But this is how you get to that level.
Yeah.
There's no other way you can get there. You've just got to take these risks, and yeah, maybe these risks don't turn out to be good. But if you could spend 20 million on a man, he does good to a good season. There is going to be teams out there who would pay 30-40 million for him.
Yeah, spot on. I agree, and then I agree. And the Dortmund model's one that I've looked at a lot recently and said that Everton should be sort of looking towards, bringing players in, getting a few decent years out of them, and ultimately football's a business, and if they move on and you make a massive profit, then that it's for the next young player that comes in and does brilliantly for a few seasons, and then it's a wheel, isn't it? It's a spinning wheel, and ultimately at the moment, the club that we are, we need to, you know, be doing the best to be looking at players that before other teams look in there. Because you're right, at the moment we're a mid-table Premier League club. You know, if we're in for it's like the Gabriel situation, isn't it? We're in for Gabriel, and you know, if Manchester United, Arsenal, Napoli, these clubs in European competitions start snuffing around, we're sort of just put to the side unless the Ancelotti effect is absolutely massive for Gabriel, because you know a lot of these players are wanting European football as a necessity, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, as I say, with the Gabriel situation, I think it's reports are saying we did have it wrapped up, but obviously you got to factor in the whole quarantine thing, and that has really hit the football in Wales early. I mean, you seen it the other day. Arsenal sacked a lot of scouts as well, so it is. You've got to factor that in. Everton, I couldn't see Everton spending 100-odd million this summer. I can't see a lot of teams apart from them top teams who can do it. Do you know what I mean? You got to sort of factor that in. I mean, yeah, well, with Gabriel, I mean, he's playing in a top 5 league where scouts are going to see him, not just Everton, and you are going to have to compete with the team like Manchester United and things like that. But if we can't do that at the moment, then you're gonna have to sort of pull away from this model of top 5 leagues.
Yeah.
Whereas you're gonna have to go and look at like Croatia maybe, or Belgium, or maybe even Poland to a certain extent. You know, you've got to broaden that scouting spectrum and just take a risk. Just take the risk because ultimately, I mean, we spoke about it last time with Morrow from Dynamo Zagreb. I mean, he had a very good. He looked very good against Man City, and I know it's only 2 games, and you factor in the league that he's come through, but you see how, and you talk to scouts who are from Croatia and how they see them and how they're looked at from their own countries, and that you've got to take these players.
Yeah.
Because if you look at Morrow, he's starting to just break into the Croatia side. I mean, that's a very good side to be breaking into.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So you've got to sort of get these players in.
Yeah.
And obviously, like, we're talking about wingers. I mean, you could add Richarlison into it. Like, Richarlison will probably, in the end, go next year.
Yeah.
He's probably only got 1 season left with us. I mean, and you couldn't blame him for going.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
That's
And
it.
when he does go, he'll be sadly missed. But you can't sort of be sort of gutted about it. You've got to sort of go, well, yeah, we're gonna get. I mean, you're talking 80 to 100 million, aren't you? Yeah. Brazilian national team player who's scoring scoring goals. He's scoring goals in the Premier League, and that becomes as a premium. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I think like that with the Richarlison. I think hopefully the right man's in place, Marcel Brands, to invest that money wisely.
Yeah, spot on, and that's all we can do, can't we? And again, I don't think any of us are under the sort of illusion that if we don't massively improve, that Richarlison will be sort of looking elsewhere, and Everton will be looking to get the best deal for him. We'll get into a couple of live comments then before we go. Just cautious of time. I've kept on for 55 minutes of his day. Ananda says T-Logic showing his solidarity with Marcel Brands wearing a PSV top. Lovely top, by the way. Lovely top. Yeah. Ollie says, alright, how are we? I'm not too bad. There's a couple of comments there. Sport Channel says Leon Bailey isn't going to be good for us defensively. Fair point. Lavit says Bernard is very... I agree as well. He says Bernard is very skillful, but I think he lacks the toughness for the Premier League. Fair point.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, you look at Bernard, and he's very skillful to a sense, but he's got good vision. He can see a big picture. Bernard, he's very clever with his balls through and all that. But physically, he's just not up to it, I don't think. I mean, you could put him in La Liga and he'd probably be very good in La Liga. Yeah. I mean, where he's got time to run at players. I mean, it's not a very physical league. I mean, I've seen it go a few times where Bernard it's hit about 60 to 70 minutes. Yeah. And his gas tank's just gone.
Yeah. He's not.
So I think, so, I mean, for 120 grand a week and 27, you'll have to start looking at more. I mean, Anthony Gordon, for me, is probably the future of what Everton Football Club should be.
Yeah, spot on. I agree. And you know, for me, Anthony Gordon's in there next season, starting most games and definitely being given his opportunity.
Yeah. I think just on Anthony Gordon as well. I mean, you see him on Twitter and you see he gets tagged in these. He's in the gym and
he's got a personal trainer, hasn't he?
Yeah, well, that's what I love to see. Yeah. His work ethic.
Yeah.
That's what you need to be a very top player.
Yeah.
You can't just rest on your talent.
Yeah,
he is talented, but physically he improved massively, in my opinion, over the quarantine period. I know when he over the quarantine he sort of bunked up with a personal trainer for them 3 months, and you can see him.
You can see.
Well, in his body, you can see he's physically ready for the Premier League. I mean, maybe he can sort of his final ball's a little bit lacking, but you're talking about an 18, 19-year-old who I'm happy that he hasn't had that sort of Wayne Rooney, Tom Davis moment where the big massive pressure comes onto him.
Yeah.
I mean, not a lot of fans are saying, he's good, and we'll see. There's a potential there. So there's not that Everton pressure just yet.
Yeah, exactly. And we've seen how detrimental that can be to players' careers before. A couple of people have asked about Jordan Pickford in goalkeeper position. We'll have to finish up in a second. If Tom doesn't mind, come on at some point within the next week or so, and we'll talk goalkeepers and specifically Jordan Pickford before the league starts.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, just quickly on Jordan Pickford, he has had a poor season, hasn't he?
He struggled, hasn't he?
I mean, Yeah, I mean, for a lad who has got this so much confidence about him, I mean, it's evident that he hasn't got confidence.
Yeah.
That like
it's like that
smart,
kid in the it's like that kid in the classroom or the play yard, isn't it? That laughs, but they're laughing out of nervousness. They're not laughing because they find
yeah,
it funny.
exactly.
It sort
Like
of hits me like
people,
that.
yeah, people take offence to him doing these funny face. Like that's him showing his nervous and sort of showing his less confidence in himself. Like, don't get me wrong, when he first came in, he won Player of the Season, if I'm not mistaken, in his first year, did he?
Yeah, or young
Did
player,
he win
one
it
of the
the
two,
year
yeah.
after? Did he win the year after? No.
I think he's won it
Not
once.
too sure.
It might have been young
Well,
player. I'm not
yeah,
too sure.
well, as I say, I think as well, I think for Jordan as well, I think he's not getting the competition.
No.
He starts every week, and that's just evidence. Like, he's guaranteed that, like, he made a mistake. I mean, I can't remember, was it against Bournemouth where he let it just go under him?
The Wolves one it was, where he laughed at the camera.
Wolves, was it? Yeah, I mean, that's slowly becoming more evident in his game.
Yeah.
I mean, for me personally, where it all went wrong was the derby.
Yeah.
Where he flapped at it, and that killed his confidence.
Yeah.
No matter how much he laughs and jokes, and under all that, 100% he knows what he's dealing with, and sort of. But I mean, like any player, of course, you're gonna have to look at it and see, is it worth bringing someone in, or in a year, like, straight to the point, he will be our number one next year.
Yeah.
We can't afford to just get rid of Jordan Pickford. I mean, we can't get rid of him and then sort of find a goalie who you would go get. I mean, Dean Henderson maybe, but
a lot of money.
I mean, Dean Henderson maybe, but I'd still stick with Pickford just to see how he went next season. I mean, but obviously I'd bring in sort of like a 28 to 30 odd year old goalkeeper who sort of like, I mean, maybe, I might get to study for this, but maybe like a Ben Foster, maybe something off the top of my head, maybe someone like him who could sort of push him. I mean, Ben Foster, he's just a solid keeper.
Yeah, so definitely, I agree, definitely, and I think that's imperative for Everton, is to have that competition, somebody to push him, somebody to give him a little bit of a kick up the arse. We'll leave it there then. Big thanks to Tom for coming on. Don't forget to check out Market Insights in the description down below. Check out their Twitter account, check out Tom's as well, TLogic1991. Go and give Tom and Market Insights a follow. Big thanks, Tom, for coming on and talking wingers today. Have you got anything to say before we finish up?
No. Last time I said I'd sell Bernard, but I'll leave it on that one.
There you go. Well, I you know what? I think obviously at that point when you said that, we hadn't had the final 9 games of the season, and people were a little bit, oh, really? Are you judging? But I think after the final 9 games, I think with the money that he's on and the lack of impact and final product, I think there's probably a lot of Evertonians in that sort of bracket as well.
Yeah, if you could get 20 million and see. Just dead quick before we go, the transfer fee is all right, like 20 million, that's fine. It's the wages that'll impact us. That's the issue. You're 120 grand wages there. I mean, you could sell Bernard for 20, and Everton maybe do have the money to get Diatta and Sarr, but that 120 could split it. Do you understand what I'm saying? So,
spot on.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Spot on. No, I agree. I agree completely. I agree 100%. It's about the club that they're going to, wanting to pay the wage, and Bernard might turn around and go, no, I'm happy to sit here and
that's
120k.
That's another issue, isn't it?
That's it.
I mean, I think you're getting that with Walcott.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah, but we had it with Nias, didn't we? Last season, wouldn't go to Leeds.
There you go.
Wouldn't go to Leeds.
I'm sure we're still paying Sandro.
Yeah, we are. We're still paying a lot of players, mate. Besic, Balassi.
I'd sell him as well.
Yeah. I think a lot more people will be in that boat, mate. Big thanks to Tom for coming on. Massive thanks to everybody for watching. Really do appreciate all of the support. If you have enjoyed the live stream, please do hit that like button. We'll be back on Friday, 5:15, for another live stream, and hopefully Tom will be back on within the next week or so to discuss more Everton, and maybe we'll go into a little bit more detail on Jordan Pickford. If you have enjoyed, please do hit that like button. Like I said, check out Market Insights and Tom in the description down below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you are new. We're back and we're smashing the content out. Please do subscribe if you're new. Leave the stream a like, and we'll see you soon on the Mighty Blues.